Hello and welcome to Echo Radio, where we go over the most effective ways of running an online business so you can work smart and live free. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs who want to create, launch, and run an online business without the years of trial and error. Hosted by me, Adrien Harrison. Hello and welcome, humanoids of Earth, to another episode of Echo Radio, where it is my job to share the struggles, joys, failures, and triumphs of anyone who embodies pursuing their passion in some form or another. We tease out the thoughts, routines, and strategies that have gotten these entrepreneurs to where they are now, so that you may learn and apply some of the valuable lessons back to your own lives. Their stories are meant to show you what life could be like on the adventurous pursuit of lovable work. Hopefully, one of them might just convince you to take the leap too. Today, you'll be listening to my interview of Abdoulaye Mouflet, a dear friend since preschool and now the proud founder and CEO of his recently launched startup, KAJ. And we cover so much in this episode, like what real hustling looks like, how to start a creative business and win, bad advice and common mistakes to avoid when getting started, how to build a team by auditing your strengths, where does drive stem from, and the most important thing to learn before starting a social company. So, without further introduction, I present to you episode 2 of Echo Radio, Hustle or Die with Abdoulaye Mouflet of KAJ. Ladies and gents, welcome to another episode of Welcome to another episode of Echo Radio. I'm joined here today by my very good friend Abdoulaye Mouflet. We just finished eating some lunch, and I'll let Abdou introduce himself. Abdou, how do we know each other?
What's up, guys? Abdoulaye Mouflet talking. Scoot. I know Adrien since very young age. We grew up together in New York, went to the same school, till Adrien decided to opt out of the French system, which might have been a good move to be seen. And basically kept our contact throughout high school, middle school, and university. And obviously very good friends, one of my best friends for sure.
All right, so tell people, like, what are you doing now? What are you up to?
So right now I'm running an event throwing company / collective called KAJ. We're based in Montreal. At the same time, I am in charge of marketing for an up-and-coming app called Nimbus Tutoring, which is a peer-to-peer tutoring service.
Okay, that's awesome. So peer-to-peer tutoring, tell me more about that.
So the idea, it was started by my friend Will. Basically, if you have mastered something and you know you're better at a certain subject or a certain class, then that means you have knowledge that you can give to someone else who needs help in that. The idea was that we were trying to undercut our competition because essentially the other competitors, which are bigger corporations with infrastructure, charge ridiculous amounts for tutoring per hour. So tutoring is a luxury in Montreal, right? A lot of the times you're going to pay for a crash course that comes out to the same price as, 2 or 3 crash courses comes at the same price as paying for one course through McGill, which is like $600, right?
Right.
At the same time, we started it because we want to elaborate into if you have any skill, you can teach it. And if you want to learn anything, you can learn it.
Yeah.
So right now we're starting with post-secondary students because it's a very targeted market and we can really focus on it. But definitely the long-term growth is in hitting everything that people are trying to learn.
And universities as well?
In terms of like a skill, let's say you want to learn more about fitness, you don't want to pay for a physical trainer, but you still want to learn from someone who's good at fitness, then you're good at fitness, you can charge someone to learn from you. And obviously it's not going to be as expensive as doing it through a gym. What we do is that we're going to have a vetting system, and that's where the value is that we're going to have to make sure that everyone who comes on the app is, worthy of other people.
Mm. And how did you get involved in this startup?
Basically, my friend brought me in after having had success with KAJ. So he saw that I had fully been able to, market a lot of events, market my brand. I've created like a pretty good, I'd say, following in the McGill community, in the Concordia community. So he saw that those skills can definitely be translated into me being in charge of his marketing, It's the same idea at the end, even though it's entertainment and education, but you're targeting different people, but the system comes back when you strip it down to the same thing.
Right. So tell us about KAJ. Like, what is KAJ, and how did those marketing waves come to be?
So, I mean, KAJ in its sense was a complete different idea when we created it. At the time, we had a loft in Oport, and KAJ was supposed to be, when we started it, the initial founders, KAJ, was supposed to be the loft area, right? That was supposed to be the KAJ.
The KAJ, by the way, listeners, in French means cage.
Yeah. But then I wasn't content with that, I didn't want it to just be an area. I wanted it to be a concept, because you can create that concept of, the idea of the KAJ was that it was a platform for artists, and you can make that concept and elaborate it into everything, to fashion, to music, into writing. And it happened naturally where I was throwing events, and basically I started just bringing in a lot of local artists who were not necessarily at the level of the artists I was usually working with at Newspeak, which were like big headliners like Darius or Simmer, but it created more of an experience for the people there, because the people who were there really wanted to see these artists because they've seen them grow,
Right.
And these artists were really interested in performing because they don't get the opportunity that much. So it created this really nice synergy, and at the same time, having to market it came to, Facebook promo ads, being able, word of mouth, using people, influencers, having people promote my events by, incentivizing people to sell tickets. It goes down to like having to think on your feet,
So like, how did you get started? What did it look like at the beginning?
The beginning, it looked like nothing, honestly. It was just like, it's crazy the evolution from, because we started about a year ago. Our first event was a year ago. And at the time we were starting, we were lucky because we were collaborating with Ivniel, which was already established brand that was started by my friend Juan. And basically, we were able to capitalize on that relationship and also create our own following. So in the beginning, it was like our first 2 months, except for the events, the 2-3 events we had that month, which were with like the big names like Waldo, Darius, Zimmer. It was just our friends coming to our events,
Right.
By, May, when we threw our first loft party, it was 400 people I didn't know,
Right. So that's actually like, would you say that was the transition from amateur to professional?
I would say the transition was so I had a very bad experience with a bar. I'm not going to name them, even though I should. But yeah, I had a very bad experience with a bar. Threw an event there, was successful. Next week we throw an event. It's not as successful. It's still okay. The manager gets mad at me. There's confrontation. It basically led to a situation where he said that he wasn't going to allow us to throw events there. And the way it works in Montreal is that every bar owner is friends with, like, it's a very small community,
Right.
So I was just at a point where I was like, oh man, I'm not going to be able to
capitalize on the Montreal market anymore.
Because, this guy is being so restrictive. I had other contacts, but still, I was just like, this is where, it was a club I really wanted to do this at, and I saw a lot of growth. And then I decided, like, I had 2 weeks where I was just, very under the weather. Like I thought that was gonna be the end because I didn't see any other place where we were gonna be. And then after, that's when I said, fuck, I'm gonna just start renting lofts and throwing events at lofts, And so I did 2 or 3 loft events that were all very successful. And then that in itself propelled me to the next year.
So I remember you talking about running multiple projects at the same time.
Yeah.
You're CEO and running a team of what is it, 6 or 7 people in KAJ. You're CMO at a startup. You were talking to investors. You're starting a fashion line. What else is going on?
It all falls under KAJ. There's the blog that's being released soon. The website which I'm designing with Harry. There's a lot going on. I'm working on also small projects, like small little hustle projects on the side, just so I can have, income while I'm, keeping money in my company, because at this point I don't want to touch anything. It seems like, I'd say for most people looking out from the outside, it seems like Abdu would be overextended. And yet he manages to hustle through it all. So I want to talk about that. Let's talk about hustle for a sec. How do you manage to hustle at this level? It's not natural. Like, where does this drive come from? I'll say the drive comes from an inherent need of being successful just for, one, my family, my mother. I need to be successful for her and everything she's done for me. And then 2, for myself. I don't think I would be happy unless I was at the level I want to be at, which is, and more, not necessarily where I want to be at, but where I want my brand to be at, especially. And I have a vision for it, and I can see it working. But for it to work is going to take, a lot of time, just because for it to work, I have to work with people with 10 different sets of skill sets who think completely differently, and kind of create a synergy between all these people and focus it towards my vision, Right. So what is it like working with these people? And I mean, you've started this company with some of your friends. Yeah. What is that like? A lot of the friends that I started the company with, most of them actually, I became friends with them through music, through, the base of what my company was, which is like making the music. We were just making music with each other, and that's how we became friends. So in a way, it was kind of natural that they were also, executives. It was kind of like more so that, not that I brought my friends to make a company, but the people I'm working with became my friends. Right. Yeah, and that's pretty awesome. So tell us a little bit about the KAJ team. Who does what? So, so far, what we're working on is getting everyone to get what they're doing by October. So, essentially, at the base of it, KAJ, what we've done and what we're doing and what we're going to continue on doing is never going to change, which is throwing events. I'm going to try to hit for bigger events for sure, starting in January, where I'm going to be bringing bigger hip-hop artists, international artists. But at the core of it, it's an event throwing company. What my partners bring is, my partner Qasim, he's chief editor of the blog. What does that do? He's interviewing artists. These artists are artists I can collaborate at my events. And at the same time, these artists and the articles have their own, they have their own pool, their own following. So what happens, you have an interview with an artist, he's really cool. People read the article, they're like, oh, KAJ is cool. They're on the website, they go to the events, There's the fashion line, The fashion line in itself is like, it's its own entity. I want it to have its own, essence while still falling under KAJ. For now, I'm just making a collection of KAJ, but if it's very successful, it's going to just be a complete own branding, but still obviously owned by KAJ.
Right.
After there's the videos, the media, which is run by Ismail. I think that is probably the most important thing right now, because the best way of hyping people up is with videos, you know? And we've worked together all summer on a project called Reverb that is executive produced by me and directed by Ismail and other partners. But we've learned to work very well together through that project, which is why I'm very excited for, you know, all the original content we're going to be releasing on KAJ, which is going to be only KAJ content.
Talking about like creative endeavors, your business is a creative one. It doesn't solve any particular burning pains for people. There aren't any obvious solutions you can package as products. It's not straightforward. So how do you make sure you're going to survive?
So for one, the reason I'm successful and the reason why we will be successful is because of how millennials are. And millennials like to have something special. They like to have a different experience. They like to individualize themselves. They like to be cool, you know? It's the age of Instagram, it's the age of Facebook, where, you know, being cool is sometimes even more value to people than having money, you know? That's where the cultural shift is happening right now. This is, what are you doing that's cool? And where I'm capitalizing is that in a way, by creating this exclusive experience, you're creating this atmosphere of, oh, I want to be a part of it, you know? I want to have, you know, some kind of, you know, in this KAJ, like I want to go to their events, I want to buy their clothing, but where we have to remain, you know, on our feet is that we always have to understand that we have to be able to shift all the time, you know? So how do we do that? For one, I do not stick with one type of music, you know? We're not a hip hop, you know, company. We're not a house company. We've thrown house events, we've thrown hip hop events, we've thrown art shows, you know? You have to understand that if you limit yourself to one type of genre or one type of group, you're kind of setting yourself up for a small failure, especially in a city that's as culturally diverse as Montreal. There's so many different tastes, you know?
What was some bad advice you were given when getting started?
To not start.
That's a great one, actually. Tell us about that.
I mean, like, when I told people I wanted to throw events, everyone thought I was crazy. You know, they were like, how are you going to throw events? How are you going to become a DJ? How are you going to do this? I was like, yeah, you'll see. I'm gonna do. And like literally for like a month, people probably thought I was crazy because I was like telling them this, and they're like, this man's is probably just like talking out his ass, you know, trying to just like impress. And then I did it, and then it worked. So, yeah.
Get started, peeps. What do you think people are doing wrong about your field right now? Like, what have you seen people do, or any common mistakes?
I mean, there's so many mistakes that the thing is that I make so many mistakes, you know. The thing is that in this field, even the best companies have flops, you know, just because to a certain extent you can analyze the trends, but it's impossible to just like any kind of trend calculating person. It's impossible to be exact every time. So, I mean, you can have an event that flops, you know, even though you have the best lineup and you think it's at the best time, just because something went wrong in the promotion. It's very unpredictable in a way, because especially that you're dealing with, you know, people who are unpredictable, you know.
Right. Yeah, you have to rely on others. It's not all in your control. So what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self? And can you give some context about where you were and what you were doing in your life at the time?
18, I was just a kid who was in college, who wasn't really aspiring to do anything particular. It was just in college and following, the trend of every first year in college. Got murked after my first semester, had bad grades, And then after I wanted to go into finance, I'm a major in economics, started working in finance when I was 18 also, my second year. And I don't know, I would think I would have told myself to just like because I've always been a creative person, and I kind of killed my creativity. Even in my school, in high school, like Lycée Français in New York, didn't like push me to be creative, We're kind of conditioned to think that like finance is the move, everyone around you is kind of like pushing for that. So my father is a creative, and I've always been a creative. I've been dancing, I've been doing instruments since I'm 3-4 years old. I kind of just gave that all up because I was like, oh, I need to do finance because that's what people do and that's how you make money. And I think I would have told myself at 18 to have just like toss that and focus on what you know how to do and what you're good at, which is being creative. I've never been good at school, I've never liked school either and liked sitting down in the class, That's not how I like learning. It's not a system that works well for me.
Right.
So the fact that I don't know, continued on doing that in that, I would have probably advised otherwise,
So you'd say the same thing, like if there were young students trying to make it in the world today in the way that you have, what would you tell them?
Like anything, just like school, if you put the work in, you'll get a payout, It might not be a huge payout at first, but like anything, it all depends on how much work you're willing to put in,
This is reminding me of Stephen Pressfield's book, Do the Work. Just Google that. By the way, we'll put all of the resources we talk about in the show notes for people to check out. But he talks about exactly what you're saying, which is you get out what you put in.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Stop talking about it. Just do the work.
Do the work, and that goes to like if you want to do music, if you want to throw events, like you have to understand that everyone's information is available. Clubs, bars. You want to throw an event, just message a bunch of bars. That's what I did. I messaged a bunch of bars and asked them, can I throw an event? I'll let you take the bar, or I'll run a test run with you once, And it just comes back to how much you want it, how much, because people would like to say they want things, but they don't do anything for what they want,
Yeah.
I want to do this, but what are you doing to be that, So I guess like my advice would be to just like be resilient and persistent, and if you really want something, there is definitely a solution and a way for you to get it, whether it is through messaging people or to just showing up at the bar. I mean, my contact at apartment 200 was made by me just talking with the manager at the bar when I just like knew he was the manager, which is something people are afraid of doing, I guess.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who, I've heard people come up and say, yeah, but it's easy for you because you're comfortable speaking to people or something like that. And look, like everyone's got their own strengths and weaknesses, and there are other ways to go about it. The whole point, and what I think Abdoulaye does a great job exemplifying, is he's built a team of people who are better at the things that he's not good at. So if you are not comfortable, you're not a social person, you're an introverted guy with a brilliant idea, you have to find a way to, like, either online, through forums, Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, whatever, connect with somebody that's an extrovert who can do all that stuff you're not so good at. But don't spend the rest of your time just complaining about not being good at those things. Find someone who can do them better or develop the skill yourself.
Exactly.
Talking about it is not going to do shit for you.
Exactly. And so that's actually, I would say, going back to that question where KAJ went to the next level, is when I realized that, Like, I tried to write a piece because I was like, I want a blog, I want the fashion line, I want the videos, I want this. So I tried to make a piece in the blog, and I read it, and it was trash. And I read it, and I told myself, should I take writing lessons? And then I looked up writing lessons and the amount of time I needed to put to learn how to write to the extent that I would want to publish it. And I realized that I was trash. There was no way I was going to become a writer for my blog. So I had to find people who can do that. Videos, I try to learn, I do know a little bit, but I try to learn a little bit of editing, and I realized that it's too much time. Like, I can't, so that's why Ismail came in. Even directing, having the team, the resources, is a whole nother domain that I'm not necessarily good at, but Ismail is great at.
Right.
So I actually, I want to point people to a resource. I actually have pointed to this before. It's called, it's a podcast. It's called Manager Tools Basics. And they're so good for any CEO, founder, anybody who wants to learn how to manage a team. I mean, they're really, really in depth. So just Google that. We'll also put in the show notes. But let's talk about delegation. How have you done it so far? What do you think about it?
I mean, I obviously have to delegate because I don't have the skills of what I want to do. But at the same time, it's very hard for me to delegate because I have such a strong vision, and I just want things a certain way for my brand. I want it to be perfect at this point, because last year when we were amateurs, it was kind of my mentality was, okay, I'm gonna do it because I can do it, and if I don't do it, then I have nothing, So it's kind of like the idea that I'm just gonna do anything and like kind of take any content, release any content that I can get,
Right.
But now I don't want to do that anymore. I want to create an experience, a brand that is the best in Canada, right? So for me to do that, it's hard for me to delegate because I kind of need to keep my hands in everything to make sure that everything's going the way I want it to. But then again, I do have to delegate, and it's an important thing for me to do because I can't do everything.
Can you tell us of a story or something where you were faced with the challenge of delegation but didn't want to compromise the vision?
It would be more for instance, the fashion line, like I don't want all my partners to be designing the fashion line with me. This is, my fashion line that I'm making with AJ, who's in charge of fashion with me, And if the partners, and I've told them at the meetings, if you like the fashion line and you think is like you agree with it, then then we'll all fund it. But I'm not gonna, change my vision or what I want to do because other people don't like it. If they don't like it, then I'm gonna fund it myself with AJ,
Right.
So I guess that's like an example where I had to be like, either you like it and you're in, or you don't, and I'm gonna do it,
Right. You have to put your foot down at a certain point and say, look, this is my project. I know what I want it to be. If you guys want to start your own fashion lines, be my guest.
Exactly.
Not mine.
Yeah.
Is there anything you're struggling with right now, or anything you're having a difficult time trying to manage?
No, right now it's going pretty fine. There's
Smooth sailing.
There's definitely some, it's definitely hard to just manage all these people at the same time and work with all these people, and obviously there's gonna be some, rocky roads at times, but for now I'm sure that one thing is that in the end of the day, what brings the money, what brings the revenue, what do investors want to see? Revenue is the events. And at the end of the day, I'm the one that makes the events happen. I'm the one with the contacts. I'm the one who knows how to market to them. I'm the one who knows how to promote them. So, I mean, if it comes down to it and I become just an event throwing company and I just throw the best events in Canada, then that's great. But I want it to be bigger than that, obviously, which is why I'm working with all these people.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not worried in any way. You know, there's definitely gonna be some disagreements with certain things because we all have, you know, our own opinions on things, and not everyone can share the same exact vision as me. It's impossible.
So what advice would you give to, let's say, people in your exact situation, right? Young founders, they have a very, very clear and distinct vision for what they want to get done. They need other people to get it done with them because they don't have all the skills necessary. What advice do you give to those people?
I mean, you have to work with those people, obviously, and understand that the reason why they're your partners is because they have those skill sets. So never just dismiss people's, you know, opinions because you're the one leading. I mean, always try to keep it a round table, because then those people are not going to work with you, you know, just because you're not regarding them as an equal. But at the end of the day, you have to remember that it is still your vision, your company. So if you do not agree with something that they're saying, or you cannot let it happen, you know?
Right.
You kind of have to put the foot down on the nose and kind of keep it open-ended yes. You feel me?
Yeah, I feel that. Okay, so like, this is bringing to mind an analogy, actually both with Mick Jagger and Steve Jobs, who were pretty notorious perfectionists. And there were times where Mick, for example, in the studio would record the same song over and over and over and over again until the studio team and the rest of the band members were going crazy. But he had a vision. He had an idea of what he wanted this song to sound like. Steve Jobs, same thing. Designed iteration after iteration after iteration, running one of the biggest companies in the entire world with hundreds of thousands of employees working for him. How do you manage that? How do you keep this vision of yours, this idea that you know is going to be successful, because as we know, Steve Jobs and Mick Jagger are some of the most successful people in their respective fields, without alienating them? Because at the same time, Mick Jagger was a complete druggie and died, and Steve Jobs was hated by a lot of people and got fired from his own company.
Yeah, it's hard, and it's to be seen. To be seen, honestly. I definitely see that there's a possibility of alienation, but at the same time, is these people who I brought as partners have the same wavelengths as me. I say in majority, for sure. So
by wavelength, you mean the same vision. They share the same vision.
Yeah, they understand it. The reason why I brought them on the team is because they loved my vision and they could see the vision, you know. That's how it started, you know. And it was a lot of the times it was just them coming to me and just saying like, I want to make this bigger, you know.
Who did you look up to as a mentor or role model?
I don't really have a role model, honestly. As a mentor, I have like a few mentors. One is a friend of my mother's called Guillermo, who helps me a lot. Mr. Kramarski, he's a mentor to me, always has given me the best advice.
Mr. Kramarski was our, what would you call that, secondary dean at our high school?
Yeah.
Super cool guy.
Super cool guy. And yeah, those two continue on mentoring me. After for a role model, I don't necessarily have a role model. I know where I want to be when I'm my own role model, you know, when I consider myself a role model, you know.
Oh, man. For those of you who watched the Oscars 2 years ago or something, there was a Matthew McConaughey speech where he was talking about the fact that his hero was his future self. And so basically, you're constantly following or trying to be your future self, but you're never going to be your future self.
Never.
And that's what makes it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what makes it worth it, I guess.
It's always, you're always reaching, but you know, it's also always changing, you know.
Exactly. That's why you never reach it.
Yeah.
It's just constantly evolving. By the time you get to the one that you thought you wanted to become, you want to be something even better.
Else and better. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that I don't have a role model, but I definitely see where I can be considered. Well, I would be considering myself a role model, you know, and I don't know. It just goes back to that, you know, that push for me to always hustle, you know, and why I always hustle. Why? Because I kind of have this vision on where I want to be in 10, 15 years. You know?
So where does that come from, and why do you have that vision?
I mean, one is just common human, you know, kind of need to be different, and I guess a lot of people wish they were different, but don't really mind not being different and not doing their own, you know, thing. But I think I wouldn't be happy unless I was doing my complete own thing. And by doing my complete own thing, obviously being different than everyone else.
Right.
So it comes to this need to always hustle, because if I don't hustle, that means I'm not moving towards where I want to be. If I'm not where I want to be, I'm not going to be happy.
Right. So it's kind of like you're not being yourself. I feel that. If I'm not challenging myself, I'm definitely going to be unsatisfied.
Yeah.
And that would lead to stagnation, unhappiness, anything that we want to avoid.
Which is why I definitely have an issue just like working for someone, you know. And I can even see the shift between me working in Nimbus, where I am an executive, but it's not my company. My friend started it. And me working in KAJ, where I started a company. I'm the leader, I'm the CEO, you know. I can already feel like I definitely would rather be the CEO than an executive, you know, just because of how I think and who I am. But then again, for a project as big as Nimbus, I am 200% fine with being an executive and being, you know, kind of, you know, a part of the system.
Part of the team.
Part of the team, yeah, exactly.
Right. I wanted to talk about that for a second. So a lot of you already know I dropped out of college, and Abdoulaye and I were very much in the same boat in high school. We were kind of like the rejects, or those who I guess were considered not to be going anywhere, and yet here we are, both entrepreneurs with our own companies. What is it about education that's good in school, and what is it that's bad?
I guess it's good. It's good because it gives you, you know, culture. For some, it opens horizons. You learn about different cultures, different people, different languages. But that is just, you know, the nature of what it's supposed to do. And it's not what really happens, you know. What happens is that the focus is on completing tasks like a robot or a simple worker in a corporation, you know, completing your weekly tasks, making sure you finish deadlines. And I feel like school has just, and university has just become, you know, just like, you know, this transition kind of machine to form these little capitalist beings who believe that they need like a certain amount of money to be happy and are willing, you know, to sell their souls to have that money and, you know, work unhappily because they are unhappy most of the time. You know, most of the people I talk to who have graduated just look at me and they're like, I hate life right now. Like, just enjoy college when you can. And it's just like, yeah, that's what school has become. And there's a lot of potential of it being something else where, you know, you actually learn something. But then again, that's the beauty of technology, you know, you can learn anything you want nowadays. Right. So to me, it's even becoming useless in a way to do that. Maybe in university, you know, high school and primary school, I think is very useful because it teaches kids social interactions. It teaches them, how to deal with other people, how to deal with issues. But then again, I don't know how useful that's going to be if at the same time it kind of stunts your creativity. And I saw it happen to me where I just stopped and decided to throw away that side of me, even though it's right now like the reason why I have so much success.
Right. What was it that killed that creativity for you? Was there a particular instance?
The fact that, the school, I mean, it's hard because I didn't work in school, but like the school didn't try to understand why I was not working. They weren't trying to understand. They were just, posing the problem that I wasn't working, so I wasn't a good fit. I wasn't getting good grades. I wasn't getting good grades not because I'm not a smart kid. It was because I wasn't interested in what I was learning.
Right.
Yeah.
And
they didn't try to make it interesting. And in a way...
Or just lead you to things that you were interested
Exactly. Or just tell me like, oh, why don't you do some creative stuff? Why don't you have some creative work? But yeah, in my mind, it was, you have to work like this so you can finish like this, blah. And that's how we're taught all our lives, is that, you have to, do math, you have to do back S, like it's looked bad on you if you're not doing a back S, you're considered inferior, and they already instilled that corporate, structure where, these guys who are like, oh, these are the investment bankers and they're above the wealth management guys, it's just like
right.
the same thing you see like in a bank, where
some social hierarchy.
Yeah, with what you're doing in school.
Right. But so what I want to get at is, and I think philosophy or psychology should probably be the two most important subjects taught, simply because if you're not questioning your lifestyle, if you're not asking yourself what's going to make you happy, what is the kind of life you want to build for yourself, you're setting yourself up for failure from the beginning. And at our school, for example, philosophy was allowed in 12th grade. That was it. And we don't really learn so much about the different types of philosophical mantras that teach you how to deal with real world practical problems. I was introduced to, for example, Stoicism, which for me is that. It's the most useful engine of thought I've adopted as an entrepreneur, that basically teaches you to quell your emotions, remove yourself from any situation that you're not in control of, but also challenge yourself and really push the limits of what you think is possible. Just that idea in its own right, for me, is enough for an education. You know that, you're set, because you can do everything else from that point on. But if you don't learn that first, you're going to end up in that social hierarchy or that influence that we were talking about, where you're kind of just spoon-fed life, and people are just going to tell you like what is valuable, right,
and what is valuable, and you agree to it,
So I would definitely, actually this transitions nicely into my next question, which is, if someone really wanted to get involved starting their own event company today, right, and you had the opportunity to mentor them for, let's say, a 12-week period, what would you teach them first and why?
I teach them to be sociable first, because that's definitely the most important part about throwing events, is that the club owners need to like you, the artists need to like you, and then the people coming to your events need to like you.
Right.
So the first thing would be probably getting him some new clothes so he can look swag.
We gotta swag you up.
We gotta make you look fresh, right?
Okay, so tell us more about that. What is Professor Mouflet's curriculum?
On fashion?
On starting your own event company?
I would say, one, you have to be on the constant lookout of artists in your area who have a following. Always contacting people, contacting artists, visual artists, musicians, always contacting bars, managers for bigger artists, So I'd say it's just like, if you want to throw events, you just have to always be doing something, either prepping for something or doing something right now to make it happen.
Got you. Who are the biggest influencers in your space, and how have they influenced you?
I'd say St. Woods, Art Gang, Moonshine, but they're after hours. I don't really do after hours, but still, they throw a lot of events. How did they influence me? St. Woods definitely influenced me a lot. They own Apartment 200, so they're at another level where they own 3 of the best clubs in Montreal, one of a good club in Toronto. Most of the time I've looked at how these people have thrown events, and I do very, very, in-depth analysis on each one of my competitors, and I have. So I know, I've gone through all their Facebook pictures, all their Instagram pictures. I've checked every single event they've thrown to pinpoint from day one, what did they do. And
this is like the entrepreneur is okay to be a stalker. So
yeah, it's fine.
Don't worry about
it's fine.
Stalking your ex-girlfriend's photos on Instagram if she's your
yeah, that's
competitor.
fine. It's all part of the hustle. But yeah, I just looked at what they did, and I'm doing something completely different from all 3 of those companies actually, and I like that I am. I'm taking elements from what they have done, but for one, I'm gonna be the first one out of them that has a blog, a full lifestyle brand. I'm trying to hit every single facade, while as St. Woods has done mostly events, owns clubs, and has 2 or 3 collections. Our gang throws a lot of events, owns this space, and collaborates a lot with artists, which is where I had that idea of always exposing artists at my event, having 4 or 5 visual artists, put up their stuff in the loft or at apartment, because in the end it creates this community of artists, of people who are coming to see the artist, which just, grows your own brand in the end.
Yeah. At Echo Studio, we talk about this. We call it crafting a unique selling proposition. Basically, you need to figure out who are your top competitors. What are they offering that you do not offer?
Yeah.
How can you fill the void in the market? And then craft a very short paragraph that you can include in all of your marketing materials to communicate that succinctly and clearly to all people you want as target customers. We're going to move into a phase called rapid fire questions now, where I'm just going to ask you a series of questions. First one is, when you think of successful, what is the first thing that comes to mind and why?
Happiness. Because true success is when you're happy and content.
What is something you believe that everyone else thinks is crazy? What do you do that's unorthodox? Or is there something you've stuck with despite everyone telling you not to?
Well, almost everything I do is considered unorthodox. This is just my lifestyle in general. I don't know. I'm able to operate 2-3 weeks on 4 hours of sleep every day, 3-4 hours, and I don't know. I would say just in general, how I live my lifestyle is very unorthodox. And people have always told me that it's not a successful way of working, but it works for me. So,
if you could put anything up on a billboard for people to see every day as they go to work, what would it say and why?
Before they go to work, quit your job.
Quit your job today.
Quit
Join
your job.
KAJ.
Quit your job and join KAJ. I don't know. Maybe something inspirational, like a Muhammad Ali quote. Give some people some inspiration before work.
All right, well, Abdu, that was jam-packed with goodness. I'm sure people are going to get some serious value from this interview, especially those just starting out. Where can people find out what you're up to, what's next in your world, or just get to know you a little bit better?
Definitely social media is the best thing. Our URL on Facebook is at KAJMTL, and our Instagram is KAJ Collective.
Is that where people are going to be able to reach out to you?
Exactly. And then after, our website is kajcollective@gmail.com. My bad. That's our email if you want to send us email. But our website is kajcollective.com.
If you could ask anything of our audience, anything that you would like them to think about or do, what would it be?
Are you truly happy doing what you're doing?
Sweet. All right, guys. Abdoulaye, this was a pleasure. Thanks for coming on the show.
No problem. Anytime.
Is there anything that's going on you want to point people to, some resources?
Definitely check out Echo Studio. Check out their resources. Check out my new collection coming out end of October, Sauvage et Libre. It will be out October 30th officially at kajcollective.com. I'll also be selling it on Facebook and Instagram. Also, if you sign up for my newsletter exclusively for Echo Radio listeners, you'll get a chance to win a free piece from the collection.
All right, that's pretty sweet. Well, thanks for coming on, man. This was sweet. I really hope to get you on again sometime. And keep hustling.
All the time.
Thank you for listening. You can see all the show notes at echostudio.co/podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please let me know in the comments. I love hearing what people found valuable. And subscribe so you can get all our episodes in the future. Speaking of which, you're probably wondering what you can expect from Echo Radio in episodes to come. We'll be answering all the burning questions we get about starting your own online business and other goodies like case studies from actual Echo Studio clients and students alike, exclusive access to great deals from other entrepreneurs and online course creators, actionable step-by-step trainings and inside scoops on how to keep growing exponentially, and most importantly, the best kind of entertainment by yours truly. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, keep working smart and living free.